So objective of this lesson is going to create a throttle function. And what that means is that we're going to be ensuring that this particular function only runs whatever the set value here is. So we're only going to be allowing it to run every 1000 milliseconds. And that's going to be listening for a scroll event, and that's going to trigger the function. So you can see that within the output in the console, we're only at most running it every second, and we're not having any multiple values per second. If we reduce that, we can see that as we're scrolling, we're going to get multiple values per second. So this is what we're going to be creating in this lesson coming up. Connected our JS file to our HTML. I've got it open on the right hand side. I'm going to open up the DevTools console so that we can see the output that's being output from the JavaScript code. So we want to implement a throttle function, and ensures a function called at most once within a specified time period. So let's go ahead and we're going to create a function, and we'll just call it throttle. And it's going to take in a couple of parameters. So one is going to be the actual function that it's taking in, and then this is going to be limiting the number of times that we're going to be making the call. So let's create a variable. We'll call it last call, and set that value to be 0. And then we're going to populate that so that we can check to make sure that we're not calling it over the limited number of times. So set in a return. So we're returning back a function, and the function is going to pass all of the arguments back into the function that's being created here, and setting up some variables. So we're going to have a constant variable, and that's going to be whatever the current value of now is going to be. So we're using date now method in order to return back the current now value, and we're going to check to see if now minus the last call is greater than or equal to the limit. So this is where we're going to set the limit, and we're going to have the condition, and if the condition is going to be true, then we can set last call and equal that to now. So that will populate the last call value with now, and then pass in the function with arguments, and this is going to run whatever function that was passed into this function itself, into the throttle function. So now let's test the throttle function and setting up a function. So we're going to run this on scroll. So we're going to be capturing whenever the scroll happens, and within the console log, we'll log out the scrolled value. So we're just going to write scrolled, and let's set that equal to whatever the new date is. So new date value. So it's going to be returning back the new date value, and then setting that to the local time string, and using the local time string method. So that should return back that local time string. And then in order to call the function multiple times, let's get the window, and we're going to add an event listener to the window. And this is going to be listening for the scroll event. And once the scroll event is run, then we're going to run the throttle function and run that on scroll. So running the on scroll function that we have, passing that in as the parameter, and setting it to 1000 milliseconds. So that will run that on every 1 second. So now we need to create a scroll actually. So let's add in some HTML here so that we can have some scrolling. And we're just going to set the value of content. And I'm going to set this to be a height value, and set it to about 800 pixels. So that will allow us to scroll, and that will show us that we're scrolling, and we're only allowing the scroll to happen, to scroll function to run once every second. So we're not going to have duplicate seconds. So if we were to actually remove out this throttle function, then the scroll would be showing as we're scrolling. It would show multiple values there. So that's how you can create a throttle function using JavaScript.